say that good things come in small packages. Well, that's not always true. Introducing the Millennium Sapphire, the largest cut blue sapphire in the world, 61,500 carats. And that's not even what makes it special. I can already see people making changes to their birthday wishes. Discover the value of your story. So this award lets me know that good morning. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Et toi? Je suis content. Hola. Bienvenue. Wan Ying, bienvenidos, bienvenita, benvenuta, namaste, and welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemmological storyteller. And each week, I get the magnificent opportunity to take you on a mental, physical, and spiritual adventure. I take the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry, and I put them all together into a story. What I've come to realize, and I realize it more and more each and every week, is that so many of the characteristics, so many of the traits and the aspects that we so highly value in gemstones, you can find those same things in people. So what I do on this show is I take those gem stories and I use them as a template, as an inception point, as a bridge to help people, to empower people, and oftentimes to remind people to take time to discover the value of their own stories. Who are you? How did you come together? How do you interact with the light? I want to start this show by, first of all, thanking you. Thanking you for all the posts that you put in the comments. Yes, I'm going to France at the end of the month, and I'm going to be playing in a regional championship of that game that I was telling you about called Petanque. And it's amazing. I've been practicing. I'm nervous, scared. But thank you for all your wishes and comments, things of this. So I'm USA. Let's see what I can do. Thank you, Barbara. I tell you each week, this program, this show for me is a magnificent thing for me to be able to do, because each week I have to get into gemology in a different way. I have to see it. And oftentimes when I end the week before, when I ended the show last week, I knew I wanted to talk about sapphires, but I didn't know which direction that I wanted to take. And I don't really worry about it because just, you know how musicians always say, or artists will say, it just comes to them. That's how it feels for me. So let me tell you a story. When I ended the show last week, as I said, I knew I wanted to talk about sapphires. And as I started thinking about what sapphires are, something hit me and I started thinking to myself, how does that come about? How do people look at sapphires? How do people see it? And when I started looking at it, I realized that I realized how it resonates. And I knew that I'm trying to pull up something. I knew that it was it was different, that I had heard about sapphires in a completely different way. So I named this show The Dichotomous Beauty of Being a Sapphire because when you look at what a sapphire is in gemology and then look at a sapphire the way people relate to it in our world, it's a completely different thing. And it's really amazing just how that whole thing works. Um, let's see. Let's see how we pull this up. Okay. So when I started looking at sapphires, I started realizing that the way people see sapphires in when you look at a sapphire, you're looking at a absolutely incredible gemstone. But as I started thinking about it, I started realizing that that's not what when I grew up, I knew that sapphires were spoken of in a different way. When people spoke of sapphires, especially with women, it was something different. I couldn't remember what it was. So I looked it up. And when I looked up, literally I Googled the relationship between sapphires and women. I pulled up this this website called the Jim Crow Museum. I gotta go there. It's in Michigan. It's in the university in Michigan, and it was the most amazingly horrible thing that I've ever read and saw in my life. And I have to read it to you in order for you to understand just the power of stories. Literally, I'm reading from this. The sapphire caricature portrays women as rude, loud, malicious. Think about that word, malicious, stubborn, and overbearing. This is the angry black woman. They literally have it in parentheses, ABW. So it's that well used, the angry black woman, popularized in cinema and on television. She is a tart tongue and emasculating, with one hand on her hip and the other pointing and jabbing violently and vertically, rocking her head, mocking African American men for offenses ranging from being unemployed to sexually pursuing white women. She is a shrill nagger. Think about that. A shrill nagger with irrational states of anger and indignation, and is often mean-spirited and abusive. We're talking about a person. We're talking about women. This is the language that they're using. Although African American men are her primary targets, she has venom for anyone who insults and disrespects her. The sapphire's desire is to dominate, and her hypersensitivity to injustices make her a perpetual complainer. But she does not criticize to improve things. Rather, she criticizes because she is unendingly bitter and wishes that unhappiness on others. Wow. I mean, this is a whole museum. This is part of the sapphire caricature. And when I read that as a man, as a father, as a man who has daughters in his life, and my daughter, my natural born, is no longer with us, but I have nieces, and you guys seen it. Those of you who follow me on Facebook, my little niece and nephew, well, big niece, she's 21, Kayla, who I've been with her from birth, and then Gianna, who literally her birthday was last week. And this is the way they describe a woman, a black woman. So, and because of her, there's a character named Sapphire Stevens back from the 1930s, from Amos and Andy. From Amos and Andy, this is what is believed. When you name a girl, a black woman, Sapphire, this is what you see. This is the story that they're telling us. This is what we're meant to believe. This is what little girls, and what's so insidious about it is these are shows that happened in my lifetime. This is not like the 15th, 18th, 17th century. This is now. This is Sapphire Stevens. There was a whole television show from the 1930s to all the way to 1966. I remember these shows, Amos and Andy, which started out with two white actors playing black people, making a mockery of black people. And then it got syndicated on CBS. So think about it. This is the beginnings of television. And it was hugely popular, Amos and Andy. Then you have Aunt Esther from Stanford is Son. I loved Aunt Esther. You old beady-eyed fool, and we would laugh about it. She was a sapphire. And then when I started thinking, I said, well, okay, all right, that's what's happening now. That's what's happening in the 20th century, the 21st century. How far back does this go? So oftentimes when I'm doing research, I'll go back to, especially with gemstones, I'll go back to the Bible. I'll say, is this in the Bible? Because sapphire, all the gemstones are in the Bible. And when I looked up what is sapphire in the Bible, I came up with there are literally 13 different references to sapphire in the Bible. But the one that came up first was this story. Ananias and Sapphira. And this is from Acts 5. I know I'm saying it like I read the Bible all the time. No, that's what makes this show amazing. I go places that I never thought I would be. Ananias and Sapphira. The way the story goes is that back in the old days, in early Christian development, that your property wasn't your property. It was God's property, and therefore you shared it with everybody else. And the apostle or disciple Joseph was asking everyone, did you donate all your stuff to the betterment of the community? And when he asked Ananias, did you donate everything? So what Ananias and Sapphira, they owned land, they had property, they had different things. So the apostle Joseph asked Ananias, did you turn in everything? Did you give all to God, to the Holy Spirit? And Ananias, he and his wife said, all right, we're going to give some to the church, most to the church, but we're going to keep a little bit for ourselves. And Joseph knew that already. He already knew that Ananias didn't give up everything. So when he asked him the question, Ananias, not knowing that he knew, said, yeah, I gave it all up. And when what Joseph said was, you dared to lie to God, to the Holy Spirit, and God smite him, literally just took him out right there. He died instantly. And his friends just carried him out. 3 hours later, Sapphira came along and didn't know what was going on. Came around 3 hours later. You know how you walk into a place and there's a whole energy going on and you're like, what the heck is going on here? That's what she walked into. And Joseph asked her the exact same question that he had asked her husband, Ananias. Sapphira, did you turn in all your money, did you give everything to God, to the Holy Spirit? And Sapphira, because they had already talked about it, said, yeah, I turned it in. And Joseph looked at it and said, how dare you lie to the Holy Spirit? And what's going to happen to you now is exactly what happened to your husband. And she was immediately taken out. Done. And a couple of things that I want you to notice. Notice that the skin color of Sapphire. Notice the skin color of her and her husband. And what God did was take them out immediately because they no longer had value. They no longer had value. And the first thing, and this is not, and I wanted to say, ask myself, how long has this story been around? I mean, obviously it's in the Bible. So then I found pictures. This is from the 16th century. The 16th century, talking about Ananias and Sapphire. So Sapphira. This is from the 16th century. This is from the 4th century. This is from the 4th century, telling that story. And the thing that got me as I'm going through this, literally like, oh my God, I can't believe it, is how is it that a gemstone that's highly valued, I mean, like I said, sapphire is mentioned in the Bible 13 different passages in 8 different books. I did the research, 8 different books. Now, ruby has about 46 entries or passages in the Bible, but sapphire has 13 separate entries. And most of the entries are talking about sapphire in a beautiful way, are talking about how sapphire is the foundation of heaven. In Job was talking. In Job, it just talks about the sapphire being coming from rocks, but sapphire is like layered with gold. So how did a gemstone that is highly valued from the beginning of time, how did that title, how did that name get associated with a woman? With a woman, not just people, with a woman, a sapphire, a black woman. Because of that television show, now a sapphire has that negative connotation. And I was just amazed at that happening. Now, I can sit here and get into a whole conversation about race and race relationships and prejudice and racism, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. See, because when you understand the power of stories, you begin to understand that you can take that story any direction that you want to take. You can take that story and make that story into something positive for yourself or for the people around you. So we're going to talk about sapphires in a different way. See, because to me, the reason why they linked up, they being the world, linked up sapphire with the negative connotation with black women, and yet sapphires, the same sapphire is held in this magnificent state of mind, is because you didn't know the story. People don't really understand what a sapphire is. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this time, instead of talking about all the racism and everything else that existed thousands of years ago and exists today, I'm going to talk about what a sapphire is. What does a sapphire really mean? So let's go back to the beginning. Review. We know that sapphire is a corundum. A corundum is a class of gemstones, which, of course, in corundum has ruby and sapphire. And we talked about what ruby is what? Come on, let's say is aluminum oxide with just a hint of chromium. That's what gives it its color. And when you talk about corundum, ruby is like the big sister. You know, you're in a big family, and Ruby is that big sister that everybody loves. You know, she's the prettiest girl in school. She gets all the awards. She's an athlete. She never has to worry about a diet. That's just a Ruby. Oh my God, everybody loves Ruby. So, and Ruby is that girl that you just look at like, wow, or that woman you just say, wow, that's a Ruby. That just seems like everything is just wonderful about her. She's perfect. That's a Ruby. A sapphire doesn't get the same kind of respect. Even though it's made up of the exact same thing, aluminum oxide. And the difference between a ruby and a sapphire is that instead of having just a hint of chromium in it, with the sapphire, you have to take iron and titanium. The elements. Remember those elements we talked about? A couple of iron and titanium in different percentages, and that makes sapphire special. It makes a sapphire. So again, corundum comes in every color of the rainbow. If aluminum oxide has chromium in it, then it's a red color, then it's ruby. If it has any other combination of iron and titanium, and oftentimes has little hints of different things, vanadium, magnesium, things of this, it gives it that iron, it gives it that, not iron, it gives it that color, the blue, the green, the yellow, the orange, all the different colors. Sapphire is a magical stone. You know what sapphire is like? Sapphire is like that woman that you didn't think nothing of it. And when I say women, I'm thinking about men too, but it's just easier for me to make the connection between women and gemstones. Not that I don't see beauty in men, okay? It's just that I don't see, it's not, to me, the jump is not as easier. When you look at women, and you've been around women, my mom was a woman, my sister's a woman. When you've been around women all your life, to me, just looking at women as a whole, you can see the connection. So to me, a sapphire is a magical stone. Truly magical. A sapphire was one of the big four: diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and then there's sapphire. That's what it is. And most people don't even understand when they think of sapphire, they only think that a sapphire is blue. And that's true. But sapphires come in a variety of different colors. These are all the different colors that sapphire comes in: green, pinks, blues, gray, golden, purple. Those are the colors of a sapphire. And again, what you're looking at is aluminum oxide with just a hint of different elements in it that gives it that color. Sapphires revered as a stone of royalty. When we talk about the royal blue as a color, what do you think you were talking about? What do you think? How did blue become royal blue? Because all the monarchs, if you were a monarch, I don't care if you came from Asia, I don't care if you came from India, I don't care if you, well, especially if you came from India or Europe, a sapphire denoted that you were on a whole nother level. Like, God is here, you're here. That's what a sapphire is. Sapphires, oh my God, sapphires is just that stone. It's just that stone that literally, when people with the history of mankind has revolved in different ways because of sapphire. So a sapphire, a blue sapphire, is a gemstone of awareness and discipline. That's what a blue sapphire is. That's what a sapphire is. Awareness and discipline. So that little girl is a sapphire. A sapphire is a gemstone of abundance and strength of will. That's what a yellow sapphire does. Abundance and a strength of will. That, what you're looking at, is a sapphire. Yeah. That's what you're looking at. A sapphire, a Maharaja sapphire, which is the most valued, the most rare sapphire, having that pink and orange color, is a gemstone of creativity, a gemstone of sexuality, a gemstone that will give you a zest for life. That is what a Maharaja sapphire is. So let me show you. That is a Maharaja sapphire. Because when you think about it, the parents, when that little girl's parents named her a sapphire, they weren't talking about, oh, you're going to be rude, you're going to be stubborn, you're going to be obnoxious, you're going to be emasculating. No, when that little girl was born, all they saw was beauty. That's all they saw. Those of you who have children, remember, especially little girl children, guys, remember when you held that little girl in your arm. I remember my daughter was and it was small enough that she could just fit in my arm from head to her the bottom of her legs, the mid thigh. She was right there. So if I named my daughter a Sapphire, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I saw. A pink sapphire is a gemstone of love and forgiveness, not perpetually angry, not unendingly bitter. Love and forgiveness. So when you name your child a Sapphire, that's what you see. She is a sapphire, a child, a human being of love and forgiveness. Look at her. How did we ever link something negative? How did we link something that is so beautiful, love and forgiveness? If you give your loved one a pink sapphire, that is what that gemstone manifests, love and forgiveness. When you name your child a sapphire, that's who she is. That's the story that she should understand in her mind, that she was born and she was named after a stone that denotes love and forgiveness. So if you tell that child that story, then that child will in many ways become that story. A star sapphire, which is the most energetically active of all the sapphire. Those points of light coming together is concentrated. A star sapphire is not like regular sapphire. It's not transparent. It's not translucent. It's opaque, because it speaks to the density of what that sapphire is, and the way what you see is the way that sapphire energetically gives that power. It's a point. So what a star sapphire does is increases the focus, the concentration of that manifestation. So when you name your child a star sapphire, that's what you see. A child who has the potential of tremendous focus. A little girl knowing, imagine the power of growing up, knowing that your parents saw that in you. Imagine feeling that within inside of who you are, because your mother and your father told you that you were a star sapphire. Yeah. Sapphires, when you think about a sapphire, look at the difference. On the left is a regular diamond. On the right is a sapphire, is a white sapphire, a transparent crystal sapphire. Look at it. You have to understand that the only difference between a sapphire, not the only difference, but one of the differences between a diamond and a sapphire is their level of hardness. So a diamond is a 10 and a sapphire is a 9. Now, the Mohs hardness scale from 1 to 10 is not, it's basically a relational scale. It gives you a relationship, because a 10, it's not like 9, 10. It's 10. A diamond is 40 times harder than a sapphire, but a sapphire is still hard. It's a 9. Nothing can scratch a sapphire but a diamond. So when you look at a crystal sapphire, when you look at a white sapphire is the manifestation of awareness, of clarity, of discernment. That's what a white sapphire does. Many people use white, not many people. This is a white sapphire. This is the white sapphire. that I keep on my desk because it has that power of clarity, of awareness, of being able to make decisions, to be able to be in tune with your thoughts, be able to be in tunes of not only the thoughts that you have, but the thoughts of the people around you. That's what a star sapphire, that's what a white sapphire does. So when you look at a white sapphire, if your child, if that young woman, if that woman is named a sapphire, that's what we should be thinking of. That's what we should see. That is a white sapphire. She is a sapphire. Look at this little girl. Beautiful. And just full disclosure, these are just pictures. I didn't, these are not pictures I've taken. We live in that kind of world. So these are not little girl pictures I did. I don't even put my niece and nephew on wait because the world is a strange place. So I just literally Googled African-American little black girls. And that's what come up. So this is a sapphire. She is what a sapphire is. See, because what we have to do is we have to understand the power of stories. This little girl, if her name is Sapphire, then she has two choices. You have to either tell her that what she is, what a sapphire means, that for thousands and thousands of years, a sapphire was revered. That when you wore a sapphire, you were a queen. Think about it. For most of the history of mankind, nobody had a sapphire unless you were queen somebody, princess somebody. So when you're named a sapphire, what you're doing is embodying that energy, embodying that value onto your child. And that's what she is. Imagine the smile. Look at the smile on her face. Imagine what it would feel like for her to know that my mommy and daddy named me Sapphire. And she has that sense of pride. She has that sense of herself. A sapphire. Notice, at no point in time did I say that it was that a sapphire is emasculating. At no point in time did I say that a sapphire is perpetually, unendingly bitter. No. A sapphire was one of the gemstones that was on the breastplate of Aaron. It was on the second row, turquoise, sapphire, and emeralds. In the second row, in the Bible. So how did a gemstone, how did the name of a gemstone get to be something negative? Get to be a negative thing. If someone was a sapphire, you expect the neck twirling back and forth. Let me tell you something. That's not what a sapphire is. That's not the sapphire that we praise. That's not who she is. That's a gray sapphire. A gray sapphire. Look at it. This is a gray sapphire. This is a sapphire that there is something special. Still aluminum oxide. It's nothing different. No different than a little girl is still a human being. It all depends on what you put inside of who she is, her education, the way the food that you fed her, mommy and daddy, that food that you gave her, that the school, the clothes, the way she took, the way you cared for her, that is who she is. And it just broke my heart when I realized not only that this is what they saw sapphires as, but this, I have been complicit. All of us complicit in the understanding, in the completely different understanding of what a sapphire is. This is a ruby. This is the ruby. Yes. And we all know women or young girls who are named Ruby. It's an older name, but it's a Ruby. But when you named a child a Ruby, what were you intending? You never hear a child named Dirt. You never hear a child named Rock. You name a child because that name is symbolic. That name is a part of who that person, what you see in that child. That's what you saw. When that was your child, you saw the beauty in her. You saw and it's no different than a gemstone, because when you look at a sapphire in its rough form, it's no different than a baby. That baby is in its rough form. You have hopes and dreams and aspirations what that child is. You named that child of sapphire because you knew you had a feeling of what that child was going to become. So when you see that gemstone, when you see that aluminum oxide with a hint of other things in it, that's what your child is. That's what your little girl is. That's what she is. I don't know her name. I don't know where she's from. All I see is just this beautiful little girl. This beautiful, innocent little girl who she will become the manifestations of whatever she experiences. So she's absolutely no different than a sapphire. None. She will grow up with strength. She will grow up if given the right ingredients, if given the right inclusions, she will grow up to be strong and hard, and not hard in a different, but strong in regards to just her character of who she is, of what she wants to be, and what you see her becoming. And when we come back from the other side, we'll continue to see how we have to tell those stories in order to get us to where we want to be within ourselves. See you on the other side. You know, one of the great things about my producer, she puts on commercials that I'm not aware of. I love salsa music, so I need to reset my mind, because I'm sitting there just like, I'm from New York. I love salsa music. So, but again, that's a sapphire. This is a purple sapphire. A purple sapphire. This is a black sapphire. And if your child, if that young woman, if that woman in your life looks like that, you would never just say, oh, she's a sapphire. Oh, she doesn't have value because of what she is, because she's not blue. You automatically give her value. Why? That's the thing that gets me in regards to gemstones and people. Why is it that we automatically, as soon as I told you that that's a sapphire, you understand the value of it? Period. You may not own one. You may not even like sapphires. That color may not be the color that you want. I know plenty of people who don't even like sapphires because they're not into blue. But they like green. They like orange. They like black. So why is it that we can give value to a rock that has just 2 elements, maybe 3 if you add something in it. 3 elements, but yet we can't give that type of energy to a child. When you see that green sapphire, what is it? How did it come about? What did it take to make that gemstone? Of all the, again, we talked about science. See, that's the whole thing about it. I don't have to do hocus pocus. I don't have to give you some incantations or some speak. Well, I don't have to do that. Let's take the stories that has been told to us and change it. That's what As a Man Thinketh talks about. Very soon, so altered has her mind become. So out of harmony is her mentality that the garment falls out of her life. And with the growth of opportunity which fit the scope of her expanding powers, she passes out of it forever. That's what we have to do. That's what this show is about. Being able to take the same stories that we've been told for thousands of years. I don't even have to make this up. I got books all over the place. Then all I need to do is just pick up a book. And as soon as I look at a gemstone, I go, oh, okay. And there is an analogy. There is a direct analogy between that gemstone, whether way it was found, how it was produced, how it was discovered, how it was praised, and literally I can guarantee you that there is a link between that gemstone and you. There's a link. Let me close my line. There's a link. There's a connection. And what I'm talking about is, how do you use that power? How do you use that understanding of stories for your benefit, to empower you? Those stories have been around for thousands, before you was even a thought, before your mother's mother's mother was even a thought. Those stories has existed. So therefore, there's power in that story because the whole world believes that about that story. So why not take that same story? And if you are a sapphire, if your name is Sapphire and you're a young lady and you're a little girl and you're a woman and your name is Sapphire, you are named after that gemstone. You are a sapphire. And what makes it so beautiful, we as human beings, which makes us better than gemstones, not just because we can think and everything else, what makes us better than a gemstone is that stone will always be that color. That gemstone will always be that orange color. That variety will be that. That's not how we work. You can decide what inclusions, what things that you want to take inside of you. You can decide that. The inclusions, the element that makes you who you are. If you want to be a chef, then there's classes, then there's books, then there's videos that you need to watch to learn in order to do that. If you want to become a lawyer, then you know the elements that you need to do to be able to become that. And I knew it even when I was homeless. I knew, and I told you this story, that I knew that that's not where I was supposed to be. I told you that day, cold day in Chicago, I was homeless in the winter of 1992. And it was freezing that year. And I remember, I think it was on February. It was absolutely freezing cold. We were warming ourselves. And I remember laughing with another guy who's homeless far longer than me. And I was laughing because I told you I was reading As a Man Thinketh every hour, every day. And he looked at me like, what the hell are you laughing at? And I was just like, I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be here. I don't know how, but I'm not going to be here. And he looked at me like, boy, please, you better just get it. And went to, no, because I understood from a elemental level. I understood. This is long before I even knew about gemstones, but I knew that if I, from as a man think, if I understood that it's about the story, it's about being able to tell yourself that story to create what it is. So if you decided to be a sapphire, if your name is Sapphire, then you decide what you want to be. You decide how you want to manifest the energies that's inside of you. You decide on how you interact with the light. So when you're a father, I remember when my daughter was born, I remember that moment, that complete moment of trust. Any child. But when you're a man and you hold that girl child in your hand and look at the trust, the absolute trust that she has, she is a sapphire. He sees, the father sees what she is. And we have to start protecting the stories that we tell our children. It's not acceptable that we have been told for centuries that a sapphire is something evil. Okay, Sapphira did what she did and God took care of her. That doesn't mean that everybody is like that. She was. That's what happened to her. But we have to begin to tell different stories in order for us to elevate in who we are. Many of us are going through so much in our lives. We know we have issues in this country, especially with mental health. And a lot of people feeling a sense of having no value on who they are, what they've been told, because they've been told a story. Let's use those stories in a positive way, in an uplifting way. Napoleon, this is the toi et moi ring. You and me. You and me. This is the you. Napoleon, when Napoleon was he had to save all his money. See, he wasn't an emperor yet. He was still just coming up when he fell in love with Josephine. Josephine was this woman from the Caribbean. She was from Madagascar. She had horrible teeth because she would eat sugar cane all the time. So teeth was all right. But to Napoleon, she was it. So he scraped all his little monies together. Literally, his books, he scraped all his money. And Napoleon was the kind of guy that if he wanted something, if it had a choice between that and food, what he wanted in food, he'd take that. So he loved Josephine so much that he saved his money up to get her a sapphire and diamond ring. A sapphire and diamond ring. That's what he did. He decided that her value, her beauty, who she was to him was at the same level as a sapphire. That's her. That's Josephine. That's Josephine. Look at her wearing sapphires, her crown, her necklace, sapphires, her bracelet, sapphires. So how did a sapphire, that the Emperor of France, one of the greatest military commanders in the history of mankind, how is it that he chose a sapphire to represent the love of his will? And Josephine was a trip. But that's not how, not saying that Napoleon, trust me, let me always give you full disclosure. Napoleon had issues, but he was romantic. He was romantic. This is what he saw. He saw in Josephine the same characteristics, the same beauty, the same power, the same elegance that he saw in that sapphire he saw in Josephine. He didn't see this. When he saw Josephine, when he bought Josephine this ring and he got his money together, when he became a general, he married Josephine and he left. He had to go to war like 2 weeks later. So when he bought Josephine that ring, when he put his money together and asked her to be his wife, and he saw that, he put that together and he bought her that because she felt like he was her queen. She was his queen. She was his empress. She didn't see this. That's not what he married. That's not the relationship that he had with Sapphire, an angry woman. He didn't see that. And not saying that Josephine and Napoleon didn't have those kind of knockdown, drag out battles, but that's not what he saw when he presented her with a sapphire. That's what a sapphire is. Just even the name of it, sapphire. Think of it. If you've been to Caribbean and you've seen sapphire ocean, sapphire waters, you know what a sapphire does. You know what it makes you feel. This, you know what this is? And a couple of people I want to say happy birthday to. One is Dr. Santi. Dr. Santi, Sharada Santi. Yesterday was her birthday. Happy birthday. You know what this is? This is your gift, Dr. Santi. You know what this is? This is the the Millennium Sapphire. This is the Millennium Sapphire. Yeah, look at it. The Millennium Sapphire we're not talking about discovered hundreds of years ago. It was discovered in 1995 in Madagascar. The original weight of it was 89,850 carats. When they finished carving it, 61,500 carats. It is the world's largest, most valuable gem quality engraved sapphire in the world. It is valued at $500 million. Imagine the power of telling your daughter that she was named, when she looks in a book, a textbook, or a movie or a video, and she sees her name attached to something that is valued at $500 million. And that's not even what makes it special. Oh no, it's not even just the size and the weight of it. And you notice that it doesn't look like look at it. It doesn't look the way you would normally think a sapphire will look. This is what you would say. Some of you are like, what? $500 million for that? This is a sapphire. This is what you normally think of when you think of a sapphire. This is what somebody's saying, yeah, now you're talking. Now that's $500 million. So why is that, although that costs millions of dollars, but it's not the most highly valued piece of jewelry in the world? Why? So what makes the Millennium Sapphire so special? It doesn't look like that. It's blue, but it doesn't look like that. It has that gleam. It doesn't have that glitter. It doesn't have that ambiance. So what makes the Millennium Sapphire so special? Take a closer look. Take a closer look at what you see. Now, most of you don't understand what it is that you're looking at. What a Millennium Sapphire is, first of all, it's not faceted, it's carved. What the Millennium Sapphire is, your gift, Dr. Santi, is it represents a great mind. It represents great inventors and great creators. They literally took all the great people from the entire, not just people and events and moments of history from the beginning of time until now. And they put it all on, they carved it. The designer, Alessio Bacci, he was the artist. He's an Italian artist. Took him 2 years, almost 3 years to put this together. Literally on this sapphire is 134 people who changed the whole course of history. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, why did he put it on a sapphire. He wanted the representation of the greatest happenings, moments, history, people in the free world. Everybody is who is anybody. Although Napoleon's not on that. Kind of messed up about that. But anybody. The people who have changed the history of mankind. He wanted to make it forever on a sapphire. Why? Because he understood there was something. The people who found that gemstone in 1995 understood the value of it. They understood what it was. That's what this guy saw. This is the designer. This is Alessio Bacci. This is the designer. He wanted to make something absolutely breathtaking. He thought about what he wanted to do, and this is what he created. He literally, and because a sapphire is a 9 on a scale of 10, so it's a hard stone, you don't want to mess this up. This has to be perfect. So what he did is he took lapis and he literally cut out different panels of people in the history of mankind. Look at the telescope right here. That's Galileo. The Leaning Tower of Pisa. Here is Alexander the Great. These are the people, the moments, the printing press. This is what he did, and he shaped each one before he put it on, made that same carving on the Millennium Sapphire. This is what he did, 61,500 carats. These are some of the people that are low or on the Millennium Sapphire. Michelangelo, Columbus, Bach, Mozart, everybody's here. A sapphire. Princess Cruise Line, the Sapphire Princess. This is what it looks like. They didn't see that this is a $400 million ship, cruise ship, $400 million. I guarantee you, they weren't thinking about this when they created the Sapphire Princess. They created a different story. You know what this is? This is the most famous sapphire diamond ring in the world. You know whose ring this belonged to? This is Princess Di's ring. It wasn't even like part of the family heirloom. She bought it in the store, but because she owned it, because it was a sapphire, it is the most highly valued piece of sapphire jewelry in the world, really part of the jewelry in the world, which she passed on to Kate Middleton. They told a different story. They didn't see that. They didn't see the angry black woman. When Prince Charles gave that to Princess Di, he didn't say, "Yeah, that's what I want you to do because thank you for emasculating me. So let me give you this sapphire." No, he didn't see that. He told a different story. And this is the largest, and this is for you, Jennifer. Happy birthday, Jennifer McAllister. This is the largest star sapphire in the world, 1,400 carats. Yeah, so big you can't even put it in a piece of jewelry. $300 million. That's how much this costs. And even though he couldn't put it on to a piece of jewelry, he knew it was sapphire. He valued it because it was sapphire. That's why he bought it. He didn't see this. He didn't see the angry black woman. He didn't see that. He saw beauty. He told a different story. This is a cashmere sapphire. So my point is, with this show, with this episode, is understanding we have to be careful of the stories that we tell. Not only do we tell other people, that we have to tell ourselves. We have to understand that just because they have told you that your name is Sapphire and therefore you're supposed to be angry, you're supposed to be destructive, you're supposed to be this, that is not what they say about what a sapphire is. A sapphire is an incredible gemstone. And your homework assignment today is to find out what is the story, what's the story that people have told you, and what is the story of who you really are. And I hope you enjoyed today. I hope those will be dealing with sapphires all month long. So happy birthday for those of you who are born in September. Again, happy birthday, Dr. Santi. Happy birthday, Jennifer McAllister. Thank you so much for being the sapphires in my life. And for all of you, my name is Barry B. Mixon. I am a gemmological storyteller. And I hope that you take time today, tomorrow, this week to discover the value of your own stories. So until next week, au revoir, atatella, voila. What makes the Millennium Sapphire so magnificent? It's not faceted, it's carved. 134 of the most incredible people in recorded history was carved in that gemstone. You got Einstein, Michelangelo, Galileo, Copernicus, even my boy Mozart are carved into that gemstone. I guess sometimes size does matter. Discover the value of your story.